equation that you can use when you're talking about photosynthesis. There's a part in the grade 12 curriculum that you can talk about the general process of photosynthesis, and then again in the grade 11, you can use this to talk about organelle functions such as the chloroplast. So just the initial setup, what you want to do is get a bunch of spinach leaves, like kind of rip them up, and then put them in a mortar and pestle or a blender. I'm actually holding this up. Okay, and then you take some ethanol and just pour it in. I usually, until it's like a little soupy, and I just mash it up. And then what I did was took a filter paper, you know how to fold it, you just fold it in half and half, and then open it up, put it in a funnel, and then filter out all the leaves and stuff, and so that you get, what you basically get is like essentially the chlorophyll ethanol mixture, and this is what we're going to actually use for our demonstration. And you can actually make this up like a couple days in advance and store it in a cupboard. It doesn't have to be chilled or anything, and it should still work. Okay, so that's what I start with. Okay, so now I'm going to go through what I would do with the students. All right, so this is my homework. Okay, so today, class, we're going to be talking about how plants convert the energy in light to the energy that they can use. So that's our big question for today. All right, so this is our leaf, and somehow it's taking the photons from the sun and converting it into something it can use for eating. Okay, so we've talked about this process before. Does anyone know what it's called? To convert light energy into food it can use. What's that process called? Lori?
Photosynthesis.
Right. Okay, so photosynthesis. And you guys can't see this on the film, but essentially I have overheads that actually give the definition of photosynthesis as well as a number of the other things that we're going to talk about, and I'll have those electronic file. Okay, and then I would just show them the equation, which they've all should have learned before. Okay, so what you don't know about photosynthesis, it can be divided into two pathways. So there's the light-dependent and the light-independent. And so the light-dependent part essentially is when the sun's light hits the plant, and that light is converted, that light energy is made into ATP. Okay? I would just write that on the board at this point, but it's just to go around. Anyway, so ATP is essentially a way of storing our energy, and that is light-dependent. Okay, and then we have light-independent part, and that is where the ATP is used to make the sugar. Okay, and just emphasize this to the students, so we'll be talking about the light-dependent part. Okay, so does anyone know what organelle within the cell of the leaf was responsible for photosynthesis? Does anyone remember? Lori?
Chloroplast.
Right, so the chloroplast is the organelle that contains the pigments and the enzymes that perform photosynthesis. And so what are the pigments that actually do... Lori?
Chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll, right. Right, so chlorophyll is the pigment that are associated with chloroplasts and are responsible for trapping light energy for photosynthesis. Okay, and so it just so happens that I actually purified some chlorophyll. Okay, so this is chlorophyll in ethanol. And I'm just going to bring it around, and you can take a look at it and make some observations. So what do you observe, Lori?
It's liquid,
right?
And it's sort of clear, but it's definitely green color with a little bit of yellow, but mostly green.
Green solution.
Green
Yes.
solution.
Green solution. Okay, so that leads us to a question. Why is it green? Why are all the plants that we see green? Why aren't they like pink or blue or red or anything? Okay, so I'll let you think about that. And also think about the fact that...
The flowers are colored.
Flowers are.
Well, we're talking about leaves. And the leaves are what do the photosynthesis, and they're always going to be green. Well, unless you go to fall. But anyway, they're green. White light can actually be broken up into many different colors. And where do we see this in nature? Where do we see white light being broken up into many different colors?
Rainbows.
Rainbows, Mile, thank you. Okay, and so each of these different colors actually have different energy levels. So some of them are higher energy, like violet's the highest, and our lowest is red. So that's just something to know. Okay, so with the green leaf, which is my constant problem, so I'm just going to give you a hint as to what's happening here. So some of the wavelengths of light, so some of these colors are going to be reflected back to your eyes, and some of them are going to be absorbed. Okay, so what ones do you think are being reflected back to your eyes? If we were to look at this leaf, you can pass it around.
So if we are able to see the green, then the green must be the one being reflected to our eyes.
Right.
And maybe yellow.
Right, and there's little bits of yellow in that too. Okay, good. So then what's happening with the other wavelengths? So if these guys are being absorbed, what's happening with the other ones?
So those ones are being absorbed or
These ones are being reflected back to our eyes, the other ones are
absorbed then.
right. So it's these wavelengths of light that are being absorbed and trapped by the chlorophyll. Okay? So what happens is in the cell, in the chlorophyll, it's made up of, it's got a nucleus and electrons, there's everything like that. So this is going to be my representative electron. Okay, so these electrons are going around the nucleus, and then the light energy comes in, that's absorbed, and it's actually going to be a transfer of energy from the light to the electron. So it's just like my hand transferring energy to this ball, right? So what happens? What's happening?
Yeah. Well, because you're transferring the energy, the ball will have more energy. So the electron, I guess, would have more energy.
Right, it's the same thing. So the electron actually has more energy, okay? So what's happening in the cell, if I could have Lori come up, okay? So the electron goes up. Oops, okay, so the electron goes up, and in the cell, there's actually something there to grab it and convert it into ATP, which is a storage form. So you're going to actually grab the electron, okay? It goes up, you grab it, and then it'll come back down. But in the meantime, the energy of its drop, the energy it loses when it drops, is converted to ATP. Okay? All right. So the question is, well, now we've got chlorophyll outside of the chloroplast. It's not in the chloroplast. So what's actually happening? Okay. So we said it looks green. So maybe we should take a closer look at it. Maybe we'll look at it under brighter light. So I don't know at this point.
Yeah, it's showing up nicely.
Is it?
So it's very blood red. It looks.
Blood red. Okay.
That's very cool. Can you see that at home?
Okay, so what we're seeing is red.
But then green over here.
But then green over here. Okay, so let's try and think about why we would be seeing red. Okay, so what did I talk about before? I said that in the cell, what's happening?
So
In the cell,
with the light energy comes in and it gives the electron more energy.
right? And then,
But in the cell, that energy will be used to make ATP.
right, okay, so but in this example, the chlorophyll is by itself. It's not in the cell. So what's going to happen when the electron comes back down?
Well,
Is it going to make ATP?
no, because there's nowhere to make ATP right now.
Right. So how are we seeing the energy released in this case?
Okay, so the energy is going to be released through light somehow.
Right, so that's the way, in this case, that's the way it's being released. And as you see here, it's being released as red light. Okay? So if I just show you a little summary here. They can't see that, can they?
Okay.
Okay, so in the normal, here we have the light coming in. The electron goes from ground state to excited. That just means it's like the ball being thrown up. And in the chloroplast, this electron, the energy is, so you would have it being converted to ATP. But outside the chloroplast, the mechanisms that are required to change it to the energy ATP aren't available, and this energy is lost as red light. Okay, and that's why we see red.